Hi, so we are going to be looking at postmodernism today. I had mentioned to you that we are going to be moving from structuralism to postmodernism, and in postmodernism you have three very important theories to learn. But before we look at the theories, let's just understand what postmodernism is all about, right? Let's try and get a clear-cut definition slash description of how postmodernism works in the context of mass media, so that we understand where all these theories are coming from, right? Please remember that there is a huge difference between the modernist theories, the structuralist theories, and the postmodernist theories. If you remember in the modernism session, I had told you guys that anything that is not traditional is qualified as postmodernism, right? Anything is qualified as modernism. So the society has transitioned from traditional to modern, and later with the proliferation of new media, please make sure that you understand this distinction, that there is new media involved in postmodernism. And when we talk about new media, we are primarily looking at the internet, but the internet is just a smaller part of the bigger framework called the digital media. Whatever has been digitized, you need to know that television and radio, which are the two dominant parts of electronic media, are not digital, right? The digital media comes right after the electronic era, when the TV and radio were slowly losing their popularity, and the new media, which were all running on digital technologies, started becoming really, really popular, right? So one of the things that you will probably need to understand when we are talking about postmodernism is social, psychological, economic, cultural, and political structures in the society are now being controlled, or on some level being dependent on the digital media firms. So that's the first thing you'll need to remember. The second thing you'll need to remember is, in modernism there was this thing of elitist high culture that was constructed, where everybody was now being categorized into two parts. One will be like the elite, the other will be like the proletariat. 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 Proletariat was the middle class and the poor people, and the elite were the rich people economically, and it was mostly talking about the capitalist structures, which is an offshoot of industrialism. Please remember, capitalism was born as a result of industrialization. Industrialism is not a technical term. Industrialization was a process, was a phase in the society which led to capitalism being formed. So when we are talking about capitalism, we are naturally looking at two different structures of the society, the bourgeois and the proletariat, right? Marxist terms. The bourgeois basically controlled and dominated the social structures in terms of the psychological, economic, and all that stuff we've been talking about, right? And the proletariat basically are answerable to the rich, the bourgeois. Now, in this context, when we are talking about postmodernism, the proletariat, that is us, the middle class people and the poor people, have figured a way out to, not just in the context of mass media, but even in a much bigger sociological context, have learnt to flatten these hierarchies. That's what happens in postmodernism. The hierarchies are now slowly starting to become flatter, and this leads to a much more balanced, a much more equal scenario for the social systems, where people can all live in harmony or whatever, right? So you guys can write down a name of this gentleman called Zygmunt Bauman, Z-Y-G-M-U-N-T, Zygmunt, B-A-U-M-A-N, Zygmunt Bauman. He gives certain features that kind of characterize the different aspects of postmodernism and the different ways in which postmodernism works, right? So the first thing you need to know is the breakdown of the distinction between high art and low art. There is no such thing in postmodernism called high art. There is nothing called elitist art. In modernism, for example, classical music, like all your Carnatic and all your Hindustani classical, this was the elitist art, and it was not easy for someone from a lower social class to be able to access training in such forms of music. But with the new media, there is no such thing as high art and low art. Everything is just art, right? Which means if I want to learn classical Carnatic music, I can just go on YouTube, access these videos and learn whatever I need to learn, and nobody is going to stop me. Same thing with everything. I mean, filmmakers, you must have noticed, at least in the South Indian film industry, there's a lot of new filmmakers coming with absolutely no filmmaking background, and who are not children of producers, even actors, who are basically struggling, learn acting as an art form on their own, and they make it big in the industry. Now, this is one epic characteristic feature of postmodernism, right? The other thing that you will need to know when we talk about postmodernism is there is a lot of focus on style more than substance, an emphasis on style over substance, which basically means when we are talking about how we like how coffee is presented, for example. At one point of time in modernism, their focus was on trying to sell, let's say, 200 coffee cups, 200 glasses of coffee, serve 200 glasses of coffee to customers, right? But today they focus on selling 20 glasses of coffee, but with like a fancy cup, and you have that. If you've ordered cappuccino coffee at a coffee day, you would have noticed that they have these fancy patterns of a leaf and stuff, on top of the creamy layer of the coffee, and they make it very fancy. And this is applicable to all types of art. Everything's just presented in a very fancy, flashy, like whoa kind of way. That is the second important feature of postmodernism, right? And the third important, very important feature of postmodernism is there is no fixed time and space aspect. Everything is very, very volatile. Everything is in motion. There's no fixation about time and space, which means in the postmodern era, you don't have to say, oh, I need to get back home to watch a particular cricket match out of the fear of missing it, because you have your Hotstar or your Amazon or one of your streaming channels or your YouTube or many other devices that record the match, the games while you are not at home. You just have to set the timer. These days, even your normal Airtel set-top box, Dish TV set-top boxes, they come with this feature of being able to record your audio, or record your video and audio, which you can play back later for access, right? So that's one very important aspect of postmodernism, where time and space factors are just not considered. See, for example, this video, I'm not looking at you guys, but I know that you will see me at some point of time talking to you, and when you watch this video, you will probably feel like I am talking to you live in real time, and you'll still get the feel of having a normal live class, but it's just not going to be in real time. So we are in different time, different space right now, but we are communicating with each other instead of having met in a classroom where I use a blackboard and teach you guys the same stuff, right? So this is another very, very important aspect of postmodernism. The last and the most important aspect of postmodernism is the fall of meta-narratives. Meta-narratives are these huge, gigantic theories that were not necessarily restricted to a particular area of study. One great example of a meta-narrative could be Marxism, right? Marxism is, if somebody asks you which field was Marxism applicable to, you can't put your pen down and say Marxism is limited to sociology, or you can't say Marxism is limited to mass communication. Marxism is a concept, a meta-narrative that is being used across streams. You might probably not believe it, but Marxist concepts are also used in sciences, physical sciences like physics, chemistry and stuff, which makes Marxism a really, really big meta-narrative. Same thing with Einstein's theory of relativity, E is equal to mc squared. It's not something that you can just apply in physics, learn in physics, know the equation, be done with it. The three different elements, E, energy, is equal to mass into velocity squared, is a is an equation that can be applied to many different areas of study, and that these kind of meta narratives are broken down, and now it's all about tiny little bits and pieces of information. Nobody really wants to sit and read theses anymore. Everybody wants research papers that are already summarized. Nobody wants to sit and watch a long 4-hour movie. People prefer watching a half an hour to 20-minute comedy show in the form of episodes, and nobody can sit in a 1-hour class anymore. This was a research study that I was a part of in a conference. I didn't work on it. I was just an audience member, and the research was conducted on trying to understand the attention span of students. Tomorrow, all three of you ladies are going to become teachers, and one thing you will probably realize is that the attention span of your students, the generation of kids that you will be teaching, is going to be far lesser than the attention span that you guys had as students when you guys were doing your undergrad and masters, right? So these features kind of mark the distinction between modernism and postmodernism. In the next video that I'm going to upload, you will come across the first theory and the most important theory by Jean Baudrillard called simulation and simulacra. I'm going to upload it in a different video so that I don't consume a lot of my data.